In just a few moments, the family of Mrs. Joyce Pollack will enter the sanctuary, but just a few brief announcements. We want to welcome all of you here present in the chapel, as well as everyone who's viewing online. The interment will take place immediately following the service at West Lawn Cemetery, located in Norridge. If you're joining our procession, we'll make sure that your car has a magnetic flag as well as an orange safety sticker. And please use your emergency flashers while in procession at all times. The Shiva will be today from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. at North Suburban Synagogue Bethel in Highland Park. That's at 1175 North Sheridan Road. And then Shiva will resume here at Chicago Jewish Funerals tomorrow, that's Tuesday, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Now, all this information is listed in your service folder. If you didn't receive one, we have them available in the lobby. Officiating today is Rabbi Michael Schwab from North Suburban Synagogue Bethel in Highland Park, Rabbi Michael Siegel from Anshe Synagogue in Chicago, and Cantor Elizabeth Batsara from Beth Judea in Long Grove. And the pallbearers will be Mrs. Pollack's grandchildren who are present, Sam, Andy, Josh, and Russell. So at this time, if everyone will please rise, the family will enter the chapel.
Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, binot esher bitzeni, al mei menuchot yenahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev, Nafshi yeshovev, yancheni v'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeitz almavet lo irara, Ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha shivtecha umishantecha hema yanachamuni taroch lefanai Taroch lefanai shulchan, Taroch lefanai shulchan, neged zorerai, Dishanta b'Hashem en roshi, Dishanta b'Hashem en roshi, Dishanta b'Hashem en roshi, Kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti beveit Adonai v'shavti beveit Adonai li'orech yamim yadadai yadadai yadadai
Greg just recited Psalm 23, chanted Psalm 23 beautifully in memory of his mother, Joyce Pollack. If you'll kindly open up your service folder to the inside and read with me the 23rd Psalm that was just chanted in the English. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Now I'm going to call up Rabbi Siegel to say a few words and chant some psalms.
Psalm 121. Esai nai el harim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz. Al yitain lamot raglecha al yanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha. Adonai tzilcha al yad yeminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmarcha mikol ra yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmar tzeitcha voecha me'ata v'ad olam. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? The source of my help is the Lord, creator of heaven and earth. God will not let you falter. Your guardian does not slumber. Surely the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. He is at your right hand to protect you. The Lord your keeper gives shelter. The sun will not smite you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will guard you from all harm. The Lord will preserve your soul. He will guard your going and coming from this time forth and forevermore. Since hearing the news of Joyce Pollack's death, I keep thinking about Psalm 90. Psalm 90 is a challenging psalm. It talks about how to face the vicissitudes of life, the challenges of life. But then, in the midst of the psalm, we have these words: Limnot yameinu kein hoda v'navi lavav chokhmah. Teach us to count our days so that we can attain a heart of wisdom. Teach us to count our days, and then we will attain a heart of wisdom. Joyce had that heart of wisdom. She was a loving mother, grandmother, a loving wife. Family was primary for her. She was also a professional person who understood the power of the word. But she also believed in the Jewish people and the Jewish community. Her work on behalf of North Suburban Congregation Bethel, the sisterhood, was legendary. She made a difference. She made a difference at the Jewish United Fund. She made a difference for Israel Bonds. How she did everything is the more interesting question. She was a person who understood that each day is an opportunity to make a difference. And that happens when we are willing to attach ourselves to ideas that are larger than us. We gain meaning in the manner in which we devote ourselves to causes, to ideas that make a difference beyond ourselves, that have resonance, that will live on long after we are gone. Today, we honor a person who fulfilled the ancient words of the psalmist. A woman who counted every day, but had the wisdom to make every day count. A woman who had that heart of wisdom. James Barrie, the author of Peter Pan, once said that God gave us memory so that we might have roses in December. I look at the beautiful flowers that grace the casket. I would suggest that you see them as memories. And when you look into the garden within, that you will celebrate the memory of this remarkable woman.
Joyce's late husband Mel used to recite Eshet Chayil to his bride each Friday night, and the children recalled that with lots of meaning and have asked me to share the words of Proverbs with you in her memory. I'll sing the beginning and the end and then read the English. Eshet Chayil mimsa v'rachop mipnini michra batach balev bala v'shala lo yachzar שקר החן והבל היופי, אישה יראת אדוני, היא תתהלל, תנולה מפרי ידיה, ויהללוה בשערי מעשיה. What a precious find is an Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor. Her worth is far beyond rubies. Her husband puts his confidence in her and lacks no good thing. She is good to him, never bad, all the days of her life. She opens her hand to the needy, extends her hand to the poor. She is clothed with strength and splendor. She looks to the future cheerfully. She opens her mouth with wisdom. Her tongue is guided by kindness. She oversees the activities of her household and never eats the bread of idleness. Her children come forward and bless her. Her husband praises her and says, many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty vain, but a God-revering woman is much to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hands. Wherever people gather, her deeds speak her praise. Amen. Each of her children are going to say a few words in tribute to their mother. I'm going to call on Jay first.
Morning, everybody. Thank you all for coming. What can we say about Joyce? One of my old high school friends, when he sent me a condolence text, said, you know, when we were younger, your mom was a force to be reckoned with. And that is very true of my mom. She was a force to be reckoned with. And I'll tell you a funny story to start this off. So my friends nicknamed Mom Nurse Ratched when we were in high school. So those of you who are familiar with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you know, that was my mom, the fiery redhead, you know, and she could be hell on wheels. I mean, she absolutely could. But many years later, my parents threw a party for Robin and Greg when they graduated graduate school. And one of those close high school friends walked up to my mom and said, you know what? I'm not afraid of you anymore. In fact, I'm going to call you Joyce. And my mom says, and he happened to just graduate medical school, and she goes, I'm going to call you doctor. And that described my mom to a T. And stories from my mom, I could start from when I was a kid. She used to tell stories when she was pregnant with Robin, and she loved going to the beach. And I was a 1-year-old kid, and she's pregnant with Robin, and I guess I was a big kid. She always told me I weighed 31 pounds at a year. So she was schlepping me around the beach, and she said her bad back came from that all along. Now, later years, she said her ulcer came from me too, so I kind of went both ways, both ways with my mom. Being that we both were Leos, I was her 25th birthday present. My birthday is August 13th, and hers was August 19th, so she always said I was her 25th birthday present. And because of the back and the ulcer, I was the gift that kept on giving. That's what she always told me. Mom liked to throw things at me. I kind of was an irreverent child, so she would tend to throw things at me, and being the baseball player I was, I would catch them and throw her back and say, Mom, try again. You know, you're not doing very well here. And then she tried something different. She used to come after me with a ping pong paddle. One day, she broke the ping pong paddle on my behind, and that was the last time she ever tried that. You know, she didn't want to do that anymore. And the relationship between Mom and Dad was sometimes hysterical. I remember coming home from drinking with my buddies at the Brat stop in Wisconsin back when Illinois was still age 19 drinking and Wisconsin was 18. And we were drinking beer all night long. And I walk in the door, and my mother's waiting for me down at the door, looking at me, and then she comes to give me a goodnight kiss, and next thing I hear, Melvin, come smell him! He smells like a brewery! So I was always in trouble. In fact, so much so, Rabbi Siegel mentioned counting the days. My mother put together a calendar counting down the 1,000 days till I went to college. I can't remember what I did that aggravated her so much, and Dad was so mad at her that she did that, but she crossed that day off every day. She crossed it off for almost 3 years. I mean, it's like, you know, but Sue and I were talking about this, that we would drive with them a lot for breakfast and everything, and you know, they lived in Highland Park for 40-something years. And we'd go to breakfast, and Dad would pull into a parking space, and Mom would go, no, not there. Dad would pull out, go to another parking space. No, not there. Honey, where would you like me to park? And she would go, wherever you want to, dear. So, you know, and it was always that kind of thing with them. But my mom was a very, very smart woman. I mean, a very, very smart woman. And she pushed me all the time. She always told me that I was an underachiever. You know, I had very smart brothers, a brother and sister, and my only claim to fame was a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. So, you know, but she would push me all the time. You could be just like them if you wanted to. I said, I don't want to. And that never really stopped her. But while I'm up here, I also want to thank my wife, Sue, because my mom's last few years would not have been nearly what they were if it wasn't for all the time that she spent with my mom and all the things she did to help her. So I want to, in public, thank her for all the stuff that she did. So thank you very much for coming, and we'll miss her.
Robin, I'd love to invite you to say a few words.
My mother and I had a very volatile relationship when I was a teenager. My father used to say he could hear us yelling at each other from half a block away. But I don't think it was really that bad. But it was a bit fraught because I was determined to assert my independence, and it was very important to my mother to prevent that. She just did not want to let me do that. But once I left for Georgetown, I started to appreciate my mother a lot more. Just kidding. When I was in France, my mother came to visit me. And we had this weird knockdown, drag-out fight over going into a movie in the middle. I said it was stupid. Then I stormed off, leaving her alone in Paris in a city where she did not speak the language. Yet, she still managed to find her way back to where I lived. Don't ask. But you know, Parisians can surprise you sometimes. Anyway, I was a very difficult child. But as I grew up, I started to appreciate her, even though she never stopped being difficult. My mom always knew best, and she generally was right. I never should have married Lauren, so we'll just leave that one. And then I wanted to annoy her, so I married him anyway. I think that was a bit of a lose-lose for everyone. And then I moved away to Hong Kong, and I actually missed my mother. Isn't that weird? She and my father visited a lot. Sometimes Dad came without her because he had some top secret business in Japan. So he would come down to see me, and my friends loved my father, but they also loved my mother. Go figure. My parents were very popular with my friends. And then I left Hong Kong and I went as far away as you can go and still be on the planet. I'm in Australia. And it's very far away. Then Dad got sick. And then he died. And then Mom did the same thing. She got sick and then she died without me being able to say goodbye. It's very, very, very hard. But I did see her in June at least, which was good. So now what I would like to do is I would like to read this poem that I wrote for their 50th anniversary, because I think it really shows that I do love my mother. Okay. With eyes so full of hope, you faced the great unknown. Youth colored you with rose light, you were hardly even grown. If pictures speak 1,000 words, then surely that one tells a story of love and optimism undiluted in dreams of fame and glory. You eyed the camera so fiercely, but how sure could you have been? You were barely out of school. How did you know how to begin? Yet you began. I remember so well that photo it showed when I realized that you, and how strange it was, when I realized that you too, once upon a time, were young. Now 50 years on and your eyes still speak eloquently of who you are, mates through half a century, reaching from the stars, yet sometimes getting burned. Marriage is husband and wife, but family too. You shaped me into who I would be. I am as much a part of you as you're each a part of me. I know that like raising me, marriage hasn't always been chocolate cake. I suppose sometimes it's more like old grapefruit, so sour it makes your teeth ache. Yet you kept on. You were the pillars of my childhood, the measure of my success. I sought to make you proud, in all things to be my best. I knew I could always count on you. You would never let me falter. Your approval was my golden ring. I yearned to be the perfect daughter. Yet though I fell short, you never made me feel I was anything less. We fought sometimes, but at the end of the fray, we always belonged to each other. I wouldn't choose it any other way than to have you for my father and mother. Good memories are like luxurious furs. You sink into them and they enfold you. You have closets of lynx and chinchilla to warm you and to hold you. 50 years of memories. memories of laughter, sometimes mixed with tears, water skiing mishaps, rubber chickens, moo jokes, to name a few, and then the memories I cannot share because they belong solely to you. The love I saw in your faces in that photo I adore is still there in your eyes today, magnified by this score. For 50 years, you've stood by each other, choosing to keep love alive rather than lose it, which proves to me that love wins out over anything else if only we choose it.
Now I'm going to ask Greg to say some words about his mom.
I'm going to change the tone here a little bit. Because you see, unlike my brother and my sister, I was known as perfect baby brother growing up. I played it for all it was worth. So I probably got along better with my mother than my siblings did. Probably because I watched my father and saw how he did it, and I said, maybe that's a good approach. Mom was a tough cookie. My friends used to call her General Joyce. She was a complicated individual, an overachiever with high expectations, not only for herself, but also for her children and grandchildren. She graduated from high school when she was 16, from college when she was 18, as she often reminded us. She told us she started law school but had to drop out to help support her new household. She was able to go back to work in the early 70s, and her goal was to make sure that all of her children were able to go to their colleges of choice as she contributed to the household earnings, and she succeeded. She and Dad were very different, as you've heard now a few times. For those of you who knew them, he was non-confrontational and diplomatic. She was confrontational and blunt. She expected perfection and was quick to fly off the handle when something wasn't up to her standards. She suffered from what I refer to as the never good enough syndrome, as well as a strong sense of entitlement. But she was always there for us when we needed her, and she stood by my father when he was ill, and as you've already heard, earning the nickname Nurse Ratchet. Once the burden of being a caregiver was lifted, Mom embarked on a new mission: to spend all the money that Dad had left her before she died, mostly on jewelry, as Marguerite saw last night, but also on other things. And she mostly succeeded in that mission. When we told her that she had to cut back on her contributions to Hadassah so she didn't run out of money, she was very upset. Fortunately, we came up with a compromise, that she could bequeath whatever was left at her death to Hadassah, which is what she did, and she was very happy with that solution. So you see, Mom was really very generous. When I started doing her taxes, I would get a list of charitable contributions from her every year, a page and a half long. Seemed like she couldn't say no to a worthy cause or to someone in need. The synagogue and Hadassah were her passions, aside from her family, of course. On the high holidays, she would bake her famous round challahs, both plain and raisin, for those who didn't like the raisin, and deliver them to her Bethel friends and extended family. And she had many wonderful friendships over the decades that she was involved in the community. She was very proud and didn't like asking for help. She never wanted to admit when she couldn't do something for herself. I think that's why her last few months were so difficult for her, because she recognized that she couldn't do everything for herself anymore. To bring my summary of life with Mom to a fitting conclusion, I'd like to share with you part of a poem that was written by somebody who figured Mom out pretty quickly, as an outsider looking in. It's called An Ode to Joyce, and it was written by Bradley Watson, AKA the Tasmanian Devil and Robin's former partner, for Mom's 80th birthday. When I was with her, I always saw so much in my mother-in-law, a mind so sharp, a razor cut, with each word, no ifs or buts. Her daughter, too, you dare to ask. Like her mother, it's such a task. Who is right and who is wrong? I've confused myself, my brain is gone. The two of them, it's plain to see, are always right to you and me. The trouble is, lament I must, two different answers, which one to trust. I must choose Joyce, let it be known. She's the boss, still on the throne. Loving, yes, and very fair. She still has that steely stare. Joyce, you see, she had the mustard. A trifle made the perfect custard. A prize to eat, but no, instead, Joyce anointed Robin's head. And for those of you who haven't heard the story, I thought somebody would mention it. When my sister refused to eat the dessert that my mother had made for her, she said, if you don't eat it, you'll wear it for a hat. And Robin said, I dare you. And yes, she wore it for a hat. So, Mom, be nice to Dad when you meet him at West Lawn. I'm sure he'll be happy to see you. I love you, Mom.
So I was sent by Greg some reflections by the grandchildren about their bubby, and I'm just going to read them in their name. So this is from Sam. When I was at college at Arizona, like most college students, I didn't have much money and would typically be eating fast food or ramen or frozen corn dogs. Bubby lived in Tucson, and she was always willing to take me out to a nice dinner, make me a home-cooked meal, or let me stay a night outside of my dorm or one of my rundown apartments. She always sent me home with her famous brownies and feeling loved with a little taste of home. A memory from Josh. One of my favorite memories is my grandparents' day from senior year of high school. Bubby was so excited to be there and really enjoyed talking to my friends and still being able to make her funny comments throughout the day. As I grew up, we didn't always get to spend that many hours together, just the two of us. But when we did, she was still her old self. A memory from Mike. I first met Bubby when I was 12 years old, and from the beginning, she always made me feel like part of the family, and not just a new step grandson. Our trips to Arizona always turned into great adventures. Checking out the biodome and stargazing at Kitt Peak, her and Banco taking the time to take us out to dinner and teach us not only about manners, but instilling a strong sense of belonging to the family. In our experiences together, she helped me realize that family isn't just about circumstances, but those shared moments that go beyond labels. A memory from Russell. My sweetest memories of Bubby are of her challah and her brownies, and picking grapefruit off her tree in Tucson, and learning about all the different kinds of cacti together in Arizona. And finally, a memory from Lindsay. Something that I always remember about Bubby is growing up, she would always come over for the holidays or dinners with challah and brownies. The brownies were truly the most amazing brownies I've had to this day. But what really stands out is that I hated raisins as a kid. And although the big challah she would bring was a raisin challah, she would always make an extra mini one just for me that didn't have raisins. The Talmud teaches us, blessed is the one who grows in Torah, who labors for the sake of our tradition, who has pleased our Creator, and who lived with a name for being righteous and generous, and who died leaving a strong legacy. Today we come to say farewell to Joyce Pollack, a woman who clearly cared deeply about her Judaism, was dedicated to her Jewish community, was generous to worthy organizations, and who left a legacy of strong values to her family and everyone who knew her. Thus, it is my very sad honor to extend my condolences and the condolences of our community to her beloved family, to her loving children, Jay and Sue, to Robin, and to Greg and Julie, to her beloved grandchildren, Sam and Annie, Jordan, Lindsay and Brandon, Andy, Russell and Celeste, Josh, Mike and Tara. My prayer is that the words we share today and the traditions of our people provide you with some measure of comfort at a difficult time in your lives. Well, most of Joyce's biography has either been shared by her family or you already know it because you've known her for a really long time. So I'm just going to share a few personal comments. The way I would put it is Joyce was a very colorful person. Colorful in her hair, colorful in her personality. It was never dull to have a conversation with her, and I did actually very much enjoy my conversations with her. She was happy to share her opinion, she was smart as a whip, and she was very witty. She was also incredibly devoted to our synagogue, North Suburban Synagogue, Bethel. She was a member for 45 years, since she and Mel moved to Highland Park. She was a regular on Shabbat and holidays, an active participant in programs and classes, and she served in various leadership roles at Bethel, including coordinating the very famous and productive Couples Club and serving as Sisterhood president. I was actually told that there was one year when Mel was still the president of the synagogue, Joyce was the Sisterhood president, and Greg was the Kadima president. In other words, the Pollacks were running the place. I think it was a good era. I wasn't there yet. As you heard, Joyce was also incredibly active in Hadassah, serving as chapter president amongst other positions, and was a very generous donor to JUF, Israel Bonds, and others. But even more than her leadership in these organizations, it was through Bethel and Hadassah in particular that Joyce created community, the close friends that she and Mel kept for their entire lives. Bethel was home to Joyce. Because of dementia and other issues, she hasn't been at Bethel much over the last 4 years, but I do want to say it was with great pride that she came to put her letter in the Bethel Torah, her mark on our community symbolically scribed, and our most treasured communal possession, which now sits in the Ark and hopefully will for many decades, bearing her touch, along with the touch of many others in our community that she cared about. She did consider her greatest accomplishment to be raising her 3 children, maybe a little difficult at times, and helping them to become the wonderful and successful people that they are, and creating families of their own. As you heard, as a child, she graduated high school at 16 and college right before her 19th birthday. Then she was accepted into and started law school before meeting Mel at a sorority party, and then creating a family with him. But she did go back to work in a different career later in life in advertising and PR. And she also took creative writing classes and picked up golf later in life. She simply was a woman of great intelligence, and she had great initiative. And she never stopped growing, she never stopped learning, she never stopped trying new things. In addition, as you heard, she was a great cook and a fabulous baker, and her recipes were known all over in the famous Bethel cookbook, Tradition in the Kitchen. The family shared what a delight it was to eat at her table. With Joyce's passing, the world has lost a sharp, smart, energetic, and generous wife, mother, bubby, professional, and very dedicated Jew. There will be a little less color of the Bethel community in her absence. She will be missed, and we will remember her with great affection and with deep respect. Ti zichra brucha, may the memory of Sarah Bat Yitzchak Shimshon always be for a blessing, and let everyone say, Amen. We're now going to recite the memorial prayer. I'd kindly ask you to please rise.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamzi Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, B'malot Kedoshim Utorim, Kezohar Amazirim, Et Nishmat Sarah Bat Yitzchak Shimshon Shehalcha Le'olama M'gan Eden Dei Menuchata Anna Bal HaRachamim Yasira Besat HaKnafav Le'olamim V'yitzra HaChayim את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה. ותנוח בשלום על משכבה. ונאמר אמן.
Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Joyce Pollack, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that her loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. May she always rest in peace. And let everyone here say, Amen. Yoshe v'seitilion mitzil shadai yilonan, u'marlanoi matzi mitzudatil hayavtachbo, v'yitzil chamipach yakush me'dever avot, v'evrato yosef la'afatak nafav tetzeh, tzinav esokerav amito, l'otira mipach avayla mekreitzil filan, me'dever b'ova yalot b'ket nedeshit zorayim, yipol mislachar alech,